Hey folks, Ray at DCRainmaker.com here. Today we're going to go ahead and raise the stakes a little bit. No, not like the Washington, D.C. steak establishment, although that place is quite good, but rather just in price. On this table and on my wrist, I have $11,149 worth of GPS watches, which is the most I've ever had. In fact, this little thing that I got for $2 at the grocery store is holding $8,000 or $9,000 of the GPS watches, which is kind of impressive. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run through what the heck the Garmin MARQ series is. Now, one thing that's worth noting here is that I'm not the customer for these watches. I'm not going to spend $2,500 or $1,500 on a watch like this, because I know that in 2 to 4 years this watch will be obsolete. And the argument that I used to have against this idea was that people buying classical timepieces, people spending that much money, want to be able to pass it down in 20 years or 30 years or whatever, and have that still be a useful watch. And that's definitely true of typical mechanical watches. But when you get into the smart realm, not so much. These will be obsolete in a few years. But I realized I was probably thinking about it the wrong way. And I've got to think about the same way I think about these cameras right here, in that I'll spend a couple grand every few years to get a new camera, and once I'm done with it, I'm more or less done with it. I might sell it off, but more likely it's just going to sit in a box and be there. And that's effectively the way I think we need to think about these watches for people that can afford these watches, is that they are temporary toys. They're more functional than a typical timepiece in terms of tons and tons of technology and function them. They're just designed with premium materials and designed to look nice and all that jazz. I think that's a better way of thinking about this, or a better way of justifying this anyways, than trying to say this is a timepiece you're going to pass on, because I don't think even Garmin looks at it that way either. I think they say this has a set period of life, and after that technology has moved on, just like it has for my cameras or for phones that now cost $2,000 somehow, or for any other piece of consumer electronic device that you have out there. So I just want to kind of throw that out there, food for thought to munch on a little bit. I'm going to focus heavily on the athlete side of it, since that's what I do. Speaking of which, that's why I'm in the suit. I figured I couldn't really do a $2,500 GPS watch unboxing in a t-shirt and jeans. Though I could, it didn't feel right. Also, I had to do the buttons because I didn't iron the shirt and it looked pretty rough, and I tried the whole shower trick and didn't really work. Speaking of things didn't work, this is the second time I've shot this video. The first time took 29 minutes. So I'm just gonna cruise. So hold on. If you want tons of details that somehow I don't cover here, check out my full post in the description there. It's on the site. All the details, tons and tons of photos of every single one of these watches I shot this morning, including things that are specific to the different editions of them. So that's all there. Again, mostly going to focus on athlete after I unbox the driver edition right now. So the driver edition is $2,500. It's the most expensive edition. The cheapest one is the athlete edition, which is chilling right there. And that's at $1,500. Everything else is kind of halfway in between there. Driver edition has this cardboard box right there, and then inside this metal tin. So go take this off there, slide this around so you can see it. Looks nice and pretty. Watch is chilling right there. Normally it has a sticker, but I already ripped that sticker off and lost it. So no sticker. But I didn't lose the packaging. So there's this part here. If we go ahead and open it up, you'll see that it's got some legal guidance stuff that basically says if you kill yourself while driving with the driver watch, it's most definitely your fault, and it probably really is. Also, it's got this warranty card because 1994 called. I'm not really sure why we need a warranty card that has no information on it for a watch that's completely digital, but it's all right. Inside of the cool metal tin, you've got the watch, and you've got this nifty little kind of placard sort of thing, like you'd hang on a door tag almost, that tells you more about the watch and more about the given buttons on the watch and the bezel. Every one of these bezels is unique to the purpose of the watch, and that's something that's probably important to note, is that there are 5 different MARQ watches, and they basically represent the 5 Garmin business lines. So you've got one for aviation, one for marine, that's the boating stuff. You got one for fitness, that's the athlete edition. You got one for the outdoor side, that's the expedition edition. Then you got one for driving, which is called driver, and that represents the automotive side, which are Garmin's core business lines. So if you look at them from an investment company standpoint or investor standpoint, that is how they are organized. And so we've seen Garmin produce watches in each one of those divisions in the past, except for the driver side of things. So that is totally new. But these effectively fall in line with the watches we've seen in the past. For example, on the boating side, the Aquatics watch aligns with the Captain watch there. Anyways, nifty little door hang tag thing there. Inside, you've got this box that you'll find the charging cable and an extra strap. My demo box didn't come with an extra strap. Speaking of which, all this stuff is loaner stuff. I'm not A, getting paid for this video, or B, getting to keep any of this gear, or any of that jazz, just the usual review stuff. I send it all back, all that jazz. They're picking up all of these watches tomorrow morning, and this one I'll hold on to for a couple more weeks to do some more accuracy testing on. New charging cable is new. It's not the Fenix one, it's not the Forerunner 640-ish type one. It's somewhere in between, because we need more charging cables. Inside here, you have the watch on a nifty little foam bed. So you can see this one has titanium links there. All of these straps are a quick fit, so they can pop off. Every time I try to do it on camera, I fail pretty miserably, just like right now. So, but they do come off, so you can swap them out for other really expensive straps. I believe they're about $200 a shot for the strap, so expensive stuff. As you can see right now on there, the LED for the optical heart rate sensor is just illuminated. This is using a new optical heart rate sensor across all of these devices. It's sort of a build on the Fenix 5X Plus edition that came out last year. So that does include pulse ox across all of these editions. And it is Garmin's newest optical heart rate sensor and what you would expect to see them put into other watches down the road. All of these watches are effectively based on the Fenix 5 Plus lineup. So that means they have contactless payments, they have offline music, so Spotify is in fact actually loaded on every one of these watches by default. They have the ability to have full downloadable maps for your region. It is a bit chintzy though that Garmin didn't include maps beyond your region, given they added up to 32 gigs of storage space in these watches, so way more space than the previous watches. You only get the maps for your region, and if you want beyond that, you have to either buy them from Garmin or download from third-party sites for free. So it seems weird to me. Like, you're paying $2,500 for a watch, just include the damn maps. That's what you should be doing. Anyways, that unboxing is complete. I'm 5 minutes into things, so we're making progress. This here is all of the watches. So right here we have the Athlete Edition. This is effectively like a Fenix 5 Plus with a couple minor additional sport features on there. We'll talk about in a moment. This is the Marine Edition called the Captain. This connects to Garmin's marine gear, so the ability to go ahead and, for example, control your boat, man overboard, all that kind of stuff is here. Has new regatta timers on there. Again, focused on the marine side of things. In the middle here, we have Expedition, which is also kind of a take on the Fenix lineup, but includes a new Expedition function, and it's actually pretty interesting. So if I go ahead here and tap this right there, you'll see it says Expedition. What happens when I go into this mode is it turns off all the sensors. So it turns off Bluetooth Smart, it turns off the underside optical heart rate sensor, it turns off any connectivity to any sensors, and it gets a month of battery life doing GPS positions every 1 hour. So the idea is that some person would use this watch over the course of a month to just tell their time and keep track points every hour for where they are. I don't know if anyone's actually going to do that, given all these watches can be charged from battery packs, and I'm not sure in 2019 if people are doing that versus just having a long activity. Still, it's pretty cool. Meanwhile, on the Aviator one right there, that one connects to all of your private aircraft or helicopter equipment, and it can go ahead and control that aircraft from the watch itself. Again, very similar to what the D2 did in the past, if you're familiar with that watch lineup. Okay, now as I mentioned, I'm not going to focus on these other watches right now. I'm instead just going to focus on the Athlete one in terms of talking about what's new and unique about it. Every watch, though, does have a party trick, if you will. So in the case of the Athlete one, if I hold this button down up here, this top right-hand button, it opens up the new stats, and I'll show you those stats on my one here since this one doesn't have my stats on it yet. This one here on the sailing one opens up the race regatta timer mode. On this here, it opens up sorry, get back there we go. It goes ahead and opens up kind of a lock heading course option. I can go ahead and lock that heading there and do navigation based on that. And on the Aviation one, it goes ahead and opens up direct to options, so basically to navigate directly to a given point. On the racing one over here for driving, it opens up a simple timer, kind of a lap timer type mode. So again, everyone has a bit of a party trick to it, and all of them had differences in the bezel, so you'll notice that, for example, here on the Athlete Edition, it has recovery hours along the bottom and VO2 max along the top, and that little arrow right there will point at where you are within that range. So it's actually kind of cool that I can look at a glance on this watch and see I have 15 hours of recovery time left. So with that out of the way, we're cruising through about 9 minutes right now. The remainder of this video will be spent entirely on the Athlete Edition and just kind of walking through the user interface. And there's no better way to do that than to use my tie to clean off the screen so you can see it. Put this right here. Okay, so here we go, Athlete Edition. This is the watch I've been testing the most over the last week or so, I guess. And it's the one I've been doing all my runs and my rides on. Again, if you want to see like the accuracy details of that, I put them in the full post link down the bottom there, just to try to keep this kind of brisk. So the first thing you're gonna notice is the widgets are different. If you go down here, press the left-hand side, you'll see like, for example, this weather widget is a lot different, a lot nicer, a lot cleaner looking. Throughout the user interface, you see changes like this. This is my last completed workout, which just happened to be my ride home last night. I got distracted and forgot to turn it off at the end, but just kind of a nice little, you can see the route right there, the distance and stuff like that. VO2 max is in there, kind of similar. Training status looks similar at first, but as you go dive into this and you go down here, you'll see now they have got 7-day loads split out from the 4-week load, but in particular, they have these new textual kind of descriptions of what you're doing. And so that's true of 7-day and 4-week load. So very, very similar to Polar's doing on their Vantage V series, kind of making things a little more real life as opposed to just purely numbers. And so it's kind of interesting. I think it's a good trend, a good way to go. Going through here, history again, this is a bit of a new interface there showing you hours over the course of the last 30 days. I like it. Spotify that I mentioned before, no difference there at all. That's all essentially the same. And then you can look at your health stats kind of quickly by diving in, for example, the SpO2 sensor data here, called pulse ox, stress data, and so on is all in there. So going back to the main screen, this is again very similar to the Fenix lineup. You can customize every one of these data pages or data bits on the screen here, as well as customize the actual watch face itself. That little yellow arrow right there is pointing to 0 hours of recovery left, but otherwise it could be anywhere on this bottom here. It could be 0, 12, 24, etc., showing you how many hours you have of recovery. VO2 max sits right now, I think at like 53, 54. Typically Garmin's VO2 max takes a couple weeks to stabilize on devices, so it hasn't quite done that yet for me. If I go ahead and press this top right-hand button to start a run though, or a workout, you'll see this is different now. They've got the moving map behind it, just really, really nice and clean look to it. This moving map is true of all these watches, and then you'll see the particular sports right at the beginning there. So in the case of the aviation one, I would see fly as the first option there. Here I've got run. I cracked that open. Again, another change at the top where you've got the signal status showing this little kind of like half moon thing. I'm not sure I really love it, but it works. It just, I think people may confuse compared to previously. The signal status went all the way around it, so people were really clear and they knew when GPS or when to start GPS. Run settings, all this stuff is essentially the same except one key thing in here. Go down into GPS and you're gonna say, that actually looks the same, Ray. And it does, it looks the same, but underneath the covers is a dramatic difference. They've gone to the Sony GPS chipset. Exact same GPS chipset that Suunto and Polar, as well as Coros, all switched to in 2018, all without a lot of luck, to be honest. So all those companies, including even Garmin, when I talked to them last week, admitted that their things are a work in progress on that chipset. And I've seen that in all my reviews where, without question, that Sony chipset is producing poor results than any other chipset out there. Now, it isn't just the chipset. Antenna design is a massive part of GPS accuracy. And it's plausible that, Sony, or not Sony, but Suunto and Polar haven't nailed antenna design as much as Garmin has, but we'll see. So far in my accuracy testing of this, the jury's out. It's still technically beta, so I'm not gonna give a final judgment yet, but it's mixed. I've had some runs that are really good and some runs that are not so awesome. So we'll see there on that. So once you back out of that and you were to start your run, it's exactly the same as the Garmin Fenix, Fenix Plus lineup. All of that is identical there. So no real changes to that piece. It looks, some minor nuances in the menus and stuff like that are different. Speaking of which, if I go into settings right here, hold this down, you'll see that looks the same, that looks the same, and boom, this is different here. Different UI styling. Not a big deal you would never notice unless you were familiar with Garmin's past products, but just some minor stuff there. And then the party trick for this one, as I mentioned earlier, is holding down this upper right-hand corner there and getting into sort of this new blended race predictor / training load graph. And in this case, it doesn't quite yet seem to have nailed me yet, because like it's showing my 10K time that It was almost the exact same time as I ran 10K during the easy training run the other night. So it'll get there. I think, historically with Garmin, as I said before, it takes at least a couple weeks of usage on a given device until that kind of stuff catches up. But you can see here, if I tap through this, I get my 5K, 10K, marathon, etc. All these are definitely slower than I would expect for the workouts that I'm doing right now. Still, flipping things over real quick, you can see on the back here is that optical heart rate sensor there, the new one, the new charging port there. And again, all of these bands are swappable. So that is the ultra fast cruising through this. I'm down to like 15 minutes, I think, right now on this. So that's not horrible. It's better than the 29 or so that I was the first. If you found this at all interesting, whack that like button at the bottom there. I really appreciate it. It helps the channel quite a bit. And whack that subscribe button if you want to see more sports technology goodness. The next 3 to 4 weeks are going to be very strong in this sports technology game. Actually, like 5 to 7 weeks into May, into early May. It's going to be a good, strong run. Have a good one.